Today's math lesson is a constructing task using a balance scale. If you do not have a balance scale at home or any kind of scale that you can use to compare two objects, how much they weigh, how heavy or light they are, you can look on the kindergarten YouTube channel and there is a demonstration of how you can make your own balance scale at home. So if you notice in this picture, there is a bucket on each side of the scale. So one bucket has yellow foam squares. The other bucket has nails. So looking at these two objects, we don't know how many foam squares there are. We don't know how many nails there are. But looking at the picture, we can see that the bucket that has the nails is lower. It is closer to the table. The bucket that has the foam cubes is higher off of the table. So whenever you see this, we know that the bucket that is lower has items that are heavier. So we're going to be looking at different examples of things that are heavier or lighter when you're comparing two objects. So this picture, it says which weighs more and how do you know? So looking in the picture on the right side, there is a red tomato. And on the left side, there is a yellow tomato. They look like they're about the same size. But since we cannot hold them, we can look at the balance scale to see which one is heavier. Remember from the first picture, the bucket that was closest to the table had the heavier object. So in this picture, we have two white bowls on the balance scale. So the balance scale, you can see that the bucket with the red tomato is closer to the table. That tells us that the red tomato is heavier than the yellow tomato. That also means the yellow tomato is lighter than the red tomato. So if we look at this next picture, both buckets have counting bears. Again, we cannot count the number of bears. We're looking at a picture, so we cannot take the objects out of the buckets. If you're doing something at home, you can count them to compare. But with this example, we can only look at the picture of the balance scale. Now, looking at this balance scale, what does this picture tell you? Look at the buckets. Is one of them lower? Is one of them higher? We can see that this bucket is lower and this bucket is higher. We don't even have to count the counting bears and see how many that we have. We're not looking at how many more or how many less. We are looking to see which ones are heavier. So this bucket, because it is lower, it is the heavier side. So this side is heavier than this side. That is what the balance scale tells us. When the bucket is lower, the items are heavier. So compare the weight. When you are talking about things that are lighter and heavier, it is called their weight. Remember last week's lessons, we talked about length and height. We talked a little bit about width. But when you are comparing if something is heavy or light, we are comparing weight. The learning target in this lesson is to compare objects by weight. And you do that using a balance scale because you want to know what things are heavier and what things are lighter. And balance scales are a tool that help us figure that out. So now there's a riddle. Can feathers be heavier than a rock? Think about a feather. Have you ever picked up a feather before? Does it feel heavy or does it feel light? If you picked up a rock, Does it feel heavy or does it feel light? So here's the thing. With feathers, one feather is very light. But if you have a lot of feathers, they get a little heavier. It also depends on the size of your rock. You can have little pebbles, you can have medium-sized rocks, you can have bigger rocks. If you are comparing feathers to a rock, guess what? Sometimes the feathers can be heavier than the rock. On these scales that we see is a different kind of little bucket that's holding it, but this is still a balance scale. It depends on how many feathers that you have on your scale. So just because feathers are very light, it does not mean if you have a lot of feathers that it's still going to be lighter than a rock. You just have to try different things out with your balance scale. Now, this is another activity that's really fun to do at home. You can find something little in your house or that you think is light and find something bigger in your house that you think would be heavy and compare them, because sometimes objects that are light are not always the lighter when you put more of them together. You can use your scale to do some experiments and figure out different objects that are smaller that might be heavier than a bigger object. You just have to use your balance scale to figure that out. Because big things can weigh just a little and little things can weigh a lot. This is a picture of one of the homemade balance scales where you use a hanger. And this one has some cord and 2 cups. In our video demonstration, there is a hanger with 2 big cups. There's also a hanger with 2 plates. You can use whatever you have at home. So if you haven't had a chance to make your balance scale, go ahead and look up the YouTube channel so you can make one at home and you can have a balance scale to do the experiments with and find things around your house. And you can figure out what is heavier and what is lighter. So go ahead, find 2 objects to compare, put them on your balance scale, see which one is heavier. Does the bucket go down? Does the bucket come up? Which side goes down? Which side comes up? That will tell you which item is heavier or which items are heavier and which item or items are lighter. Once you do that, you can either draw a picture of what you find with your 2 objects, or you can take a picture. Either way, post them on Seesaw so that we can see the objects that you find in your house and which ones are heavier and which ones are lighter. Don't forget, if you're drawing, you need to write labels so we know what we're looking at. And if you are taking a picture, you can write it on the labels and we can read it on your paper. If you take a video of yourself, just describe with your words. Just tell us what it is that you were weighing with the balance scale. Tell us what is heavier and what is lighter. So we look forward to seeing your different items that you are finding around your house that are heavier or lighter.